Out here on the Texas plains, water is everything, and there's a resource that's as vital as it is fragile: our playa lakes. These lakes are nature's reservoir, catching rainwater to recharge our aquifer and provide lifelines for wildlife. But now they need our help. In collaboration with the Texas Playa Lakes Conservation Initiative and the Cargill Global Water Challenge, SARA has started the Our Legacy is Tomorrow's Water initiative to inspire and work with landowners to restore and protect our playa lakes. Each playa we save helps secure a sustainable water future for the generations that will be coming after us. Whether it's improving soil health, restoring habitats, or recharging groundwater, we are committed to making a difference. Together, we can build a legacy that we can all be proud of. To learn how you can join in, visit the Playa Lakes Restoration Initiative page on the SARA website. Let's keep Texas water flowing strong for the future. Visit sara-conservation.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Evan Stone with Clear Rock Farm and Ranch, part of the Clear Rock Realty Group in Lubbock, Texas. Evan understands West Texas land, agriculture, and what it takes to buy and sell farms and ranches in our unique region. If you're ready to make your next move, trust someone who knows the lay of the land. Visit Evan at clearrockrealty.com, serving Lubbock and the surrounding communities. Clear Rock Farms and Ranch, your partner on the plains. Friends, and welcome back to another episode of Conservation Stories. Conservation Stories is a podcast brought to you by the Sand Hill Area Research Association. Today, we want to kind of interrupt our usual routine to bring back a Produced Water Society fellow. We've had Ben Samuels on the podcast before, Mike Hightower, so several folks that are part of a Produced Water Society. But I wanted to bring Michael on today because there's an upcoming event in Midland that we want to let you know about. And Michael, can you give us a little bit about yourself and what you do with the Produced Water Society?
Well, first of all, obviously, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this group. Bruce, my day job, I work in water treatment technology. I've worked in a variety of different spaces, and I just volunteer some time on the side for the Produced Water Society. But I think it's a fantastic group. It's kind of why my most many a few hours of unpaid labor of love, I guess, for the Produced Water Society. But it's a great group. It's been around 30 plus years, and the core of the group is is getting folks together to talk about water management in oil and gas, right? So that can seem like a fairly niche topic, but it's become really, really important, especially, in West Texas, Southeast New Mexico, as kind of the, explosion of production out there, but also kind of the increasing water cut, of producers out there. And so kind of how do we manage this water responsibly, what technologies, but also what support from government bodies and from other industries, can potentially be involved to help develop a systematic solution to water management. And that's how we started talking with the Sand Hill Area Research Association and other groups, right? I personally come back from water treatment, like I said, but other folks in this group, right, are maybe university researchers who have developed a new treatment technology, or an oil and gas producer might, know how to logistically move around water their operations, maybe get it to the way they've done it before, disposal wells, things like that. But what if they want to partner with somebody, a local, ag producer, right? I know E&P people might call themselves producer, ag producers might call themselves producers. So we'll be clear on our producers who we're talking about. But, what if a local ag producer wanted to potentially use, treated, cleaned up water from oil and gas operations? It's something we've in theory been talking about, as a group and as, even as an industry. But how does that work? We'd love to hear from you, from folks like you and from your audience at these events. So, open invitation to kind of everybody, like I said, so the Railroad Commission and TCEQ, right? Regulators to come participate in these dialogues. Anybody who's interested in water and how it's managed in this space would love to, both have you participate as an audience member or as an actual, get in the dialogue. We'd love to hear from you. So kind of the high level of dialogues that we're having there.
Yeah, and it really it is a great opportunity for people to really come and learn how much water we're talking about, what the opportunities are for it, and what the roadblocks are. And I mean, I don't know how much you are, into all the policy side of it, but I know we've seen two different responses from Texas and New Mexico recently on how they feel about the use of this. Really, it's a new resource for us that we need to be taking and utilizing. And to think that in New Mexico, where they're saying, there's no use for this, but they're not cutting down oil production.
Yeah.
Well, I just think the short-sightedness of not thinking, in what we would call that circular economy, where you're utilizing that waste product in, especially in a region that is really dry and could use all of the excess water, So I think there's some great opportunities, I think for a dairy, it's a great opportunity. They use water and do a great job of recycling and using that water over and over and over again, and so there's some great potential opportunities and uses in ag. And so I'm excited. Lacey's spoken at a couple of these events, and we've had, some great follow-up conversations from those events. And so I'm excited. We've put together, 4 different types of projects that we think that will, get some things rolling in agriculture. So can you give us a little bit of an overview of what to expect from speakers?
Sure. So the event is August 11th to 13th in Midland, less than 2 weeks away. And so August 11th, we have a welcome reception that evening. Most of the content will be on the 12th and the 13th. So the variety of speakers, 2 full days of content. But the first day we'll have a focus on kind of current water management practices, which is heavy in injection and disposal. So some talks about monitoring downhole pressure. How do you safely and sustainably operate your injection well, things like that. The second day will have a heavier emphasis on kind of some of the things we're talking about here, beneficial use of the treated water. How can we, take oil and gas wastewater, clean it up to a standard? How do we validate that? What are the regulations around that look like? Kind of variety of speakers in that space. And I believe Lacey is sitting on a panel there on that second day, talking about, I believe the panel, we had some catchy title. What is it? Got Water, Ag Needs You, I think is kind of how we named that one. So Lacey and other ag producers talking about kind of how they use water in their industry, right? Because folks in oil and gas, until I started hearing from Lacey and others, right, I knew in theory water is used in agriculture, but I had no idea. I didn't know what a caliche pit was. I didn't know what, things like different, the logistics are really important when you talk about, oil and gas generates, and we'll just spill the beans a little bit, right? Millions and millions of gallons every single day of water. Now, in this raw form, it needs to be cleaned up. But I mean, in theory, right, if this is all cleaned up and there's technologies out there, you'll hear at the Produced Water Society talk about different technologies that can be used, right? Where does this water go? Oil and gas makes roughly the same amount of water every day. Ag needs water seasonally, right? So how do we manage that interplay? Things like that are kind of all really important discussions we need to be having. I'd love to see these projects happen, then there's talk about them, there's interest. So I would love to kind of work through these logistics and make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is about, getting past some of the regulations, proving that, we already have the Clean Water Act, I know there's technology that can meet those standards for the Clean Water Act. And so, once you can prove that you've done that, I feel like Texas is ready to move forward on some of these projects. And I'm hoping that we can really get some good, some good support from our legislatures to let's get a few of these projects on the ground.
Absolutely. Yeah, and for everyone's, go to the Bruce Water Society website and look at the agenda. But kind of, in addition to Lacey's panel, right, that we will be hearing from Commissioner Gonzalez from TCEQ. Will be giving, as well as the Chief Engineer Ted Wooten from the Railroad Commission, right? we want to we've invited these folks, to come out
Mm.
and participate in these dialogues because I think it's really important to make sure that we hear from them as well, and make
Yes.
sure we're engaging with these bodies as we move forward.
Exactly. And this meeting is in Midland, but you have several events throughout the year. And the Produced Water Society, for people who don't know, is in an international organization, because this is not just a Permian Basin issue. This is an issue that's come along with the technologies. As technologies have increased and improved, we're able to access more oil and gas, but we access more water. And I would call it new water, because it's water we would never have accessed otherwise.
No, absolutely. And please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but so as somebody who's done a lot of work in industrial wastewater, I'm tempted to use the term beneficial reuse, right? That's very common language in industrial wastewater, but as you
Yes.
pointed out, right, the produced water that comes from oil and gas is formation water. This was water that was trapped deep, 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 well below
Mhm.
our typical reach, right? If not for the oil and gas activity, this water would never have come to the surface, right? So this is truly a new source of water, and
Mhm.
especially in places, like the Middle East, like, West Texas, right, where access
Right.
to water for ag and other things
Mhm.
is limited. This is a,
Mhm.
potentially very valuable resource that has been treated as a waste for far
Yes,
too long.
absolutely. And I've met with companies that have they have got projects going in the Middle East where they have mangroves. They put in these lakes, and they have these mangroves in the middle of the desert. You know what I mean? And so it's really fascinating to see some things like that, where I don't think of places in the desert, that sand being able to really hold on to that water. But they're seeing some great, you know, they're just seeing great benefits there, because they're moving forward and getting things done.
And absolutely, this is a smaller projects, but because those are massive, massive projects, and I think the Permian's going to need some massive projects. But for those who've worked out in Bakersfield, right, the kind of oil and gas activity out in California, there,
Hmm.
again, the volumes of water are much smaller, but they have
Yes.
there's operators out there who've been doing similar type projects, right? If you've eaten, California almonds, like
In
there's a high
California.
likelihood those were grown with
Yes.
treated oil and gas wastewater. So
Yes.
kind of funny thing that not too many people have thought about. So
Yes. Well,
absolutely.
it needs to happen. It needs to get going. And I mean, that's why we want to connect, our audience to the potential for produced water, encourage people, if they've got the time and inclination, it would be a great thing for folks to show up at. And if we will put the date, time, information, link to all of the Produced Water Society's information in the podcast and show notes, so that people can go, and then we'll put it out there on socials so people can have a chance to take a look at it, and get caught up in, and hopefully join us.
Yeah,
So,
if you don't mind, I'd like to actually plug one last thing that we didn't talk
absolutely.
about, and this is something we are making public now. So it's kind of unofficial announcement. It may have been mentioned in other places, but it's not something we've widely publicized until just the last day or two. So as part of the event, we've partnered with some local ag producers, actually. So I don't know if you even knew this, but or if you've heard this yet. But so we are setting up a tour on August 14th. So it would be
Great.
affiliated with the Produced Water Society, but unfortunately, due to kind of liability restrictions, we're only allowed to have a limited number of guests on this tour.
Mhm.
But some local ag producers have volunteered their facilities to have produced water folks, right, oil and gas water technology folks, come out to visit their facilities. And this is, again, just part of our effort to collaborate across
Yes.
industries and get more interest in these things. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, we are expecting, typical attendance at this event is obviously several hundred people. We're
Right.
going to have to severely limit, unfortunately, attendees to
Sure.
the tour for that reason. But
Sure. Yeah.
please reach out to the Produced Water Society. I'm Michael M. Grossman at producedwatersociety.com, or any of the Produced Water Society folks. If you are interested in that tour, that will unfortunately be a very limited audience, but
Yeah.
anybody interested, that event will be happening
Mhm.
to help further. So
Now,
just
are these where you're talking about these tours? These are farmers we're already using. is treated water, or these folks that
No,
are
they're not.
interested
Yeah, so I
in?
should clarify that, right? It is really just a learning opportunity, right? Because
Mhm,
for background, right, so you've been to our events before, right?
mhm,
You've heard, over the last few years, we've had people come up and talk about, hey, I think we can treat this water. This is the quality it hits. I think it could
right.
be of interest, right? But how much have we actually really dug into the weeds with folks? And this was an opportunity that,
Mhm,
through some connections at actually Texas Tech, we were able to connect with these folks who are interested in doing it. And they said, hey,
mhm,
we love this water. Please bring us this water.
right.
And when I had questions like, how does the water get stored at your facility? How much do you use, when and where, right? These were
Mhm,
the folks who I
mhm,
kind of turned to, and they've graciously opened up their facilities for folks in oil and gas who might know about oil and gas, might even know about water treatment, but don't
right.
necessarily know about agriculture.
Right.
So that's the
Well,
purpose.
and piggybacking on that, we put up a blog post several months ago that to give some of those economics for oil and gas to be able to look at, so that they can see, hey, here's what typically what it's going to cost, farmer to grow a certain crop, and here's the amount of water that they're going to use, so that they can kind of get an idea of, on the water side, what kind of, volumes that you're talking about for what kind of crops.
No,
So, I mean, there's
that's
a
really
lot of
helpful. Thank
knowledge
you.
that
Yeah.
needs to be passed back and
Yeah,
forth. So
exactly.
I'm super thankful that you guys are doing that. And I already have in mind. I know a Jenner friend of mine reached out and said, "Hey, is oil and gas like? Are they working at all with ag?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll come to find out." So it'd be great to, have some folks like that there to, really help leadership on the ag leadership side to move things forward.
I appreciate you guys, spreading the word about this event. As I said, traditionally had a very oil and gas heavy audience, obviously, just
Right.
by design. But we need voices like yours, and your
Hmm.
audiences to come participate in
Yeah.
these events and help us understand. So appreciate
Yes.
that.
Now it's a great opportunity for farmers to connect with oil and gas folks, and we're happy also. We just recently, put together a few locations here around the Lubbock area to start some projects. So it's the ideas are there, and maybe even we can follow up after sometime after harvest is over and have some kind of event in Lubbock for farmers to come to kind of see what the potential might be.
Yeah, I would definitely love to coordinate with you
Mhm.
guys on that. That sounds like a great
Yeah.
idea.
Yep. Well, thank you so much, Michael Grossman. We
My
appreciate you taking the time to visit with us, and we will get this out to folks, and we hope that there's a great turnout. There
well,
usually is.
well, thank you. No, we're excited about it and appreciate you helping spread the word. So thank you so much
Yep.
for having me.
Yep. Well, folks, thanks for joining me today for this little short podcast and update from the Produced Water Society. And I hope we can see you August 11th through 13th in Midland or the 14th on farm.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Michael.